Welcome to the Rethink and Return podcast. My name is Jason Shepard. Every week, we rethink things and return to God's original intention and His design. We generally do 2 recordings a week. One, we revisit a passage of Scripture that thousands of people are studying together in a Sunday gathering or in a house church, and we're just going to dig more deeply into these things that we didn't get to talk about enough or want to talk about more that we're wrestling with. And then we do another recording where we're just working out leadership things, being a pastor and ministry or leading stuff, and wrestling with tensions of how we live like that in our world today. So we'd love for you to like this, subscribe to it, share it with other people. Enjoy the podcast. We'll see you soon. Hey, thanks for joining us for the Rethink and Return podcast. We like sitting around and talking about the Bible and how it applies to people's lives, especially through a local body of believers like we have here. And as always, I'm glad to do this with mi amigo, Davido.
Always great to be back. Loved getting to do this with you.
Yeah, bro, it's been a cool thing. So we get to sit around, we get to teach people the Bible. We get to actually here at Church Party form communities where this is practiced, which is the greatest thing in my mind, that we get to form a community where stuff is fleshed out. And because the Bible is fleshed out in community, not just in our minds theologically.
That's right.
And so a lot of people are theologically believers, but not practically carrying it out. They're not killing people or selling crack on the corner, but they're not living with the one another's. Today, what we're talking about as we're in between, the book of Galatians and whatever we're going to do next, I'm taking a few weeks to talk about to our local church body, hey, these are some things that I think are real, and they're happening right now, and I think we need to be armed with it. Last week, we talked about what does it mean to pray for an obvious move of God, and this week, I've been wrestling with it. In fact, I wanted to preach this a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but I couldn't because I was just too raw in some of my emotions of grief, and other people were sitting in the apex of some of it. And but I feel like it's so important. So today we looked at Hebrews 11 in a very different way.
Very different.
In a way, honestly, I've never heard anybody look at it, and maybe nobody should have. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I did it all wrong.
No, it's great.
But we looked at Hebrews 11, this hall of faith, and we looked at the shadow side of every one of these great things. Hebrews 11 has always encouraged me, but as I've looked at it from another angle, it actually encourages me even more because we had an honest conversation today about the grief that each one of them carried with them in their life, the massive suffering that all of them had, yet they still carried their faith through it. And that's what we did today, I called it a theology for grief.
Yeah. Really good. Well, I loved, what you said about we're going to get behind the text, Of course, I nerd out over all the preaching stuff, But I think that's right. Each one of these people had some level of grief that they all experienced. Yeah. And faith doesn't really have a lot of context without some kind of struggle.
I think it's unfair to think that the godliest among us won't go through grief, when in fact, I've actually seen the opposite in my own life. Some of the godliest people I know have gone through or are going through unbelievable grief. And the reason we need to get this right-sided is because, in the name of bad theology, many people have left the faith. And today, I think, helps rebuild a little bit of that if we're willing to let these biblical truths reframe what we're saying a little bit. I said, the first thing I said today as I was introducing this was, we get angry at God when things from hell happen here. We shake our fist at God, and as if He's the cause of it. And so it's an expectation, actually, that this should be heaven. Every time we get mad about something that we think shouldn't happen here, we are actually expressing an expectation of heaven here.
Right.
Like nobody should get sick here. My grandma, my friend, my husband, my wife, my kids, my wife, nobody should get sick here. And we get mad at God because we're not yet in heaven. We're righteously angry about things, but we direct that anger at God. We have an expectation that heaven should be here and now.
That's right.
And it's not.
Right. And it's also a trap. Like, if we get angry at God, you eliminate any hope for an answer. Like if you see the one who has the answer as your enemy, you kind of box yourself in the midst of your suffering.
Yeah, in the middle of a group of people suffering weeks ago, one guy asked me this question. He said, how do I see God through this suffering? And I said, I don't see God through suffering. I see suffering through God.
That's right.
And if we see God through suffering, we will neither more clearly understand God or suffering. But if we see suffering through God,
that's right,
and more specifically the gospel, we will understand God more clearly and suffering more clearly. And so, like you said, when we throw God out, when we blame God for suffering without a proper theological context, without the whole gospel looking at it, we neither understand God nor do we understand suffering.
That's right.
And the only thing to do then is just get bitter, because you can't outrun suffering.
Right.
You can't move away from it. You can't change cities or countries or climates. You can't even change people. You can't even interchange marriages or kids or parents or friends. Like, you just can't outrun suffering.
That's right.
And if you don't have a proper view on it, you're going to get bitter.
Well, I loved that you got it down into a principle form. Like, a lot of people make grief so complex, and you help people to know today that you have to view your suffering through God.
Yeah.
Right. You have to, to me, that summary principle, if people make it out of the building into the car with it,
that's right.
That is the summary of grief. Yeah. And then I love, because then you took that principle and unpacked it using the people in Hebrews 11.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see God through this situation. I see this situation through how I see God.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't see God through this situation. I do see this situation through how I see God in the gospel.
Yeah.
And then so we started unpacking it. I mean, the premise here for me, I love it in verses 1 through 3, before the writer of Hebrews, who didn't name himself for whatever reason. But the writer of Hebrews, some say Paul, some say Barnabas. I think if we were supposed to know, we would have known.
Yeah, right.
So the unnamed writer of Hebrews is about to go through this incredible, what is called the Hall of Faith.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Hall of Fame of the people of faith. And he goes through this but before, he sets a premise in verses 1 through 3.
Yeah, that's right.
Now faith is being sure of what we hope for, certain of what we do not see. This is what the ancients were committed for. And that's what he says in verse 1 and 2. He's about to list the ancients.
Right.
But then he says in verse 3 something that I think is so important. By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Like, there is a foundation for the faith of all these people, and essentially it was an unshakable, I believe that everything that exists was formed by this God.
Right.
And it was formed by his command, so he's preeminent, pre-existing, eternal, enduring. He's the sovereign commander. He speaks, and everything comes to be. So immediately, it puts us into this situation of deference. Like, I may not understand, but I'm going to defer. Like, I may not understand, but I'm going to submit, because I didn't pre-exist this stuff. I didn't speak, and the universe was formed at my command. So immediately, it puts us in this position of submission to go, I don't understand this, but I can't, because I'm not that. I'm not God. I'm not the former of the universe at my command. And I really like that the writer put these principles of faith in before he gets into the application for all these people.
Okay, I do too, but you said, the phrase I wrote down in the notes was that you have to build a paradigm for your faith.
Yeah.
And that's really, that's the purpose of these first 3 verses. He's setting these parameters. And then I know that I can't remember if you referred to it or if it's just in the notes, that about having this give you a deep, quiet confidence in your soul.
Yeah. I didn't say it out loud, I mean, that's the thing about preaching, right? You're like, oh, I wish I would have said that. Or, oh, I wish I would have said that.
Right.
It's actually, I don't know what's worse. Sometimes you're like, oh, I wish I would have said that. Like, you missed a moment.
Right.
But then when you say something you wish you wouldn't have said, like, that's pretty bad. Like, in the early days of Church Project, I said more of those.
Right.
Way more than I should have. And I would be like, I don't know what it was, but every night, like Sunday night when I was brushing my teeth before bed, it was like time to think, and you can't talk, and nobody's talking to you. That was always a time where I would literally out loud make a noise like, oh.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Did I really say that way? That was, I wish I could take that one back.
And it always took me 2 weeks to get over it. Like
Right.
I couldn't just shake that off. I'd have to live in regret and promise God I'd never do it again, feel bad about myself, think about other career choices. And then I eventually come up out of it and go, okay, I'm okay now.
And then while you're carrying that regret, you have to go preach somewhere else.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, that way, when I would feel like, oh, man. So, yeah, like today I didn't say that, but I mean, I said a lot. But, yeah, I wish I would have said that, but I did write in my notes, and that is, where is it?
It's at the, under, look at how the godliest walk through the deepest grief.
Oh, yeah,
right there,
faith is a quiet guiding. It's at the title up there. Faith is a quiet guiding confidence deep in the soul.
Right.
And I think when we look at faith, we need to realize this isn't some crutch to help people get through a hard moment. This is a guiding, quiet confidence deep in my soul that can sustain me even through the struggles, even through the grief. Mm-hmm. And so we have to have such a quiet, guiding confidence deep in our soul that it can sustain us through the suffering. I don't believe that most people have that deep in the soul, quiet, guiding confidence that can sustain them through grief. I think most people, many people at our place here, people are hungry for the word. They keep growing in their faith, learning the word, all of those things. I love it. Mm-hmm. But there are plenty of people who come here and they're like, I don't know anything. Mm-hmm. Or I've never been in church, never been around the Bible. I love that. But there are people who come here like they were in some shallow, not teaching truth churches for a long time.
Yeah.
And their foundation for their faith isn't sustainable through suffering.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the faith that was, hey, teach me how to do this better, or teach me how to make life better. But it's not rooted in these deep doctrines that'll sustain us.
Well, I think that's right. I think that, people hear for so long about either God caused all this and that it creates all this blame and suspicion towards the Lord, or the other side of it is, well, you just, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be good.
Yeah.
God's going to make you healthy and wealthy, and, and they both breed some kind of disappointment.
That's right.
And this is where I think what made this sermon so powerful today is that we had a lot of response in the prayer room. People are suffering. People are going through loss.
Yeah.
And if they don't know how to think about it, then they're left with their own thoughts without any good theology. I think they just become a punching bag for the enemy.
When I left after today, often we record this on Mondays, but if I'm going to be doing something else, we'll record it on Sunday. Yeah. So I ran away from here. I went to Chipotle, left the foyer, ran to Chipotle, came back. But while I was there, I ran into a family from our church who's going through the deepest grief.
Right.
Like the deepest grief. And they're grieving, but they're grieving with like such a firm foundation of faith. Yeah. It doesn't take away grief, and it doesn't shield you from suffering.
Yeah.
But it does give you a foundation that you can walk through the suffering and the grief. And I see people do that, and then I see people walk through grief without that foundation. Two totally different paths forward.
Yeah. I don't know how people make it through situations like that without the Lord. I don't know how people do it.
I don't either.
And then, so when you talked about setting this foundation, having a theology about grief, and then you used the list that the writer makes to talk about the shadow side, behind the text. Yeah. All these people were struggling with some kind of grief.
Yeah.
And I love that. I thought that's a powerful take on a text.
Yeah, I think it's really unfair when we talk about somebody's faith without talking about the valleys they've been through.
Yeah.
Because then we start to think, well, maybe I don't have that kind of faith. I can't make it. Or if we don't know the valleys they've been through, we may think, oh, they don't have troubles because they have so much faith.
Right.
So Paul here, the writer of Hebrews here, is saying the ancients of faith, and then he starts listing them. And so I used an example. I just walked through the list, but we won't go through all of them for here. But for example, we'll do a few. Like, By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as a righteous man when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith, Abel still speaks even though he's dead. So I read that in this list, and I'm like, and I've heard plenty of sermons on Abel's faith or his offering.
Yeah.
How his offering was pleasing to the Lord because he brought his first and he brought his best, and Cain didn't. And how God's still using his testimony today. Awesome.
Right.
We hear sermons on that, or I think that when I read it. But now I've thought, whoa, he had faith in the middle of suffering. I mean, so his brother Cain, a tough situation. Adam and Eve had some children. Cain and Abel were two of them. Abel brings a great offering to the Lord. It was his first and his best because his heart loves the Lord. And Cain didn't bring his first or his best. In fact, right after this offering that the writer of Hebrews is referring to, God went to Cain.
Right.
And he's like, Cain, sin is crouching at your door, and its desire is to have you, but you must master it. And then right after that, Cain rejected God. His heart got even harder, and he went and murdered his own brother. And so you have this family, Adam and Eve, who walked with God in the garden. And they sinned, but they also loved the Lord. And they were dealing with the consequences of their sin. And then they see their sons, who Adam and Eve know, sons, follow the Lord. It is better. We remember the garden. Nobody else would remember the garden other than Adam and Eve.
Right.
And so they're going to surely pass down the stories to their kids of the garden.
Right.
Right. And then they're like, hey, follow the Lord because life with him is better. Obeying him is better. Trusting him is better. And then surely Cain and Abel heard that. So Adam and Eve, good parents, trying to teach their kids to follow the Lord. You had one kid who was following the Lord. I mean, he brought the best and the first of his flocks.
Right.
And his heart was right with the Lord. And then they had a son who wasn't. Like, there's grief in this family before this moment. Like, you had one of the kids who had walked away from the Lord.
Yeah.
And then his heart got so hard, he made a horrible decision that keeps affecting us literally to this day.
Yeah.
Many thousands of years later, or however many years. And so there's pain in this family, and we don't read about that in the story, but we know it from Genesis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think, you just pointed out, and it's worth noting that the people in this list of Hall of Faith were not perfect. Like, I think a lot of people go, well, I could never make that list.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who's suffering through grief and chooses to lean on their faith could be included in this list because that's what these people are doing.
That's right.
And so I think it's worth noting that you can't say, well, this doesn't apply to me because these are all superheroes.
Yeah. And they were superheroes.
Faith.
They were superheroes who were exercising faith in the middle of grief.
That's right.
And so because their faith had a foundation, it was strong enough to endure the suffering.
That's right.
And so, I mean, Abel brought this great offering, but Thanksgiving wasn't a great time with the family. Family birthdays.
Right.
We're like, how old are you? Oh, I'm 960 years old. Right. I mean, they're at a lot of birthday meals together.
That's right.
Family birthday dinner. But things weren't great because you had at least one, but some of the kids weren't following after the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. And this family had that. And I wrote down, someone's growing in their walk with Jesus, but your friends and family are falling behind in their faith. And that, I know plenty of people who the family is growing in their faith, but then there are other members of the family who are falling away from their faith or falling behind in their faith. And that's what was going on in this family. And so we shouldn't read verse 4 without being honest and going, they had some tough stuff happening.
Yeah, they did. They had some drama.
And then we got into verse 5 through 6. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. And I'm like, that's awesome for Enoch.
Right.
Only two people in the Bible who had ever just taken, Enoch and Elijah.
Yeah.
And it says they didn't experience death. Like, they didn't have to die. But I just thought, as I'm working through this passage from this side of the coin, I've always read it from one side, but now that I flipped it over.
So good.
Now that I flipped it over, the same passage from the other perspective, I'm like, what was that like for Enoch's wife?
Yeah.
who, wherever he was, he all of a sudden was no more. Like, where's Dad? He didn't come home.
Yeah.
You know? And they go look for him. They can't find him. And at some point, he was just gone. Like, the beauty of Enoch being taken from this life for him was beautiful. And even actually, I love looking at like God doing this. I know this is wild. I haven't had this thought before now, but I wonder if God doesn't do this more because it causes so much pain for the people left behind.
Wow.
Because they weren't able, they had no closure.
You're right.
They didn't, we're reading it, but they couldn't. They didn't know what happened.
Right.
Moses, who wrote Genesis about it later, I mean, you know, that wasn't until a lot later.
Right.
So I don't know if his family knew what happened to him. There was no funeral to gather everybody around. Nobody could grieve together. And so I just wonder if that's one of the reasons why God doesn't do this more.
I think so. And I think when you point that out, you have to imagine like there's the first hour that he's not there, and then the hours become days, and the days become weeks, and then there's all this open-endedness. Nothing is settled. There's no closure. It's just he's just not there.
And like I talked about today, I said he was such a good man.
Yeah. And
we need more good men. We need more good leaders. We need more good husbands and fathers. His community needed more people because, I mean, the world wasn't in great shape.
Right.
And, you know, we need more good people, not less. And so his community even suffered. So Enoch was taken from this life so he didn't experience death.
Right.
He could not be found because God had taken him away. That's what verse 5 and 6 is.
Yep.
But that family endured a lot of grief.
They did. They had to get through it. They needed faith to get through it.
And then, you know, it says Noah, and then it says Abraham. We'll sort of quickly run through those. But
okay.
Noah, I mean, I loved it. We put his ark on walls with animals and rainbows.
Yeah.
You know, it's, by the way, just like I mentioned today at church, probably we don't do that.
That's right.
I tell pastors all the time, I'm like, like last week, we had this building was being rented out by a company, and I said, nobody's going to rent your building if you put Noah's Ark on the wall.
That's right.
But if we did put things on the wall, we definitely put Noah's Ark on the wall.
For sure. Even though when you, like, I know it's a classic children's story, but when you read it, it's terrifying. Like the world is being flooded. Right? I mean, it is
everybody's going to die.
Everyone's going to die. Yeah. Everyone's going to die, kids.
Hey, kids. Yeah. I mean, now we get into, how did a giraffe get on the ark?
Right.
Like, how tall was it? I mean, we get into those things, but I'm like, okay. Like I said today, hey, has anybody here ever seen the devastation of a flood?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we in Houston have, but other places have for sure. But the entire world looked like that.
Yeah.
Like, a city after a real flood is terrifying.
It's terrifying.
And the entire world looked like that.
Yeah.
Trees toppled, grass gone, buildings gone.
Nothing identifiable.
People gone.
People gone.
I mean, the water was just sucked back into the ocean, and they get off the ark, and nobody's there. And so that's a brutal story.
Yeah.
That causes other questions and other things to wrestle with. But Noah was committed for his faith, but we got to realize his faith was being practiced in the middle of a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you pointed out that, I really would call that the grief of rejection because people thought he was nuts.
Yeah.
They're like, what is this with the boat and there's no rain forever?
Yeah.
And like
years.
He suffered the rejection of his own family and friends around him because they thought he was totally crazy.
Yeah. I mean, imagine, dude, like the community getting together. They all thought he was crazy. We know that.
Yeah.
Nobody's helping him. We also know that.
That's right.
And they're like, he's building a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Out of gopher wood.
Yeah.
And on the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Or wherever. And these people are like, what a psycho. And so whenever they're having like a little, community shindig, July 4th or whatever the days were, Noah shows up with a casserole. I mean, nobody's letting him sit at their table.
Right. He's just left out.
And so, Noah's wife is feeling it too. And I bet it, because God gave the word to Noah. I don't know if his wife, they were on board. They got on the boat.
Yeah.
But I mean, Noah was probably rejected. His kids probably couldn't stand him.
Yeah.
Dad, look, I mean, I have teenagers and I've had a lot. God, look at, you're embarrassing me.
Yeah.
And so his faith was exercised amidst a lot of grief. And we should read these stories understanding the real context.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and I think there's probably some people listening that they didn't build an ark, but they've been rejected by people, or they've been abandoned by people that
That's right.
maybe for their faith, or maybe for their faith and the reason of their belief in God, their families aren't talking to them and friends aren't talking to them. I mean, there is a grief, like you pointed this out. There is grief to that. Like he didn't have any friends.
Yeah,
you have to grieve that out.
That's lonely. I did say here or somewhere just about, this low-grade fever of loneliness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's here in a minute, but I think Noah had that too. By the way, I did say in the sermon that something I'd like to put in here. I wish I would have said at the top of this podcast, but, we're angry at God that here is not yet heaven.
Yeah.
But we have promises about heaven.
Yep.
We have promises about hell, and we have promises here.
Right.
And so promises of heaven, hey, dude, like one day there will be no more sickness, there'll be no more sadness, no more suffering, no more death, no more divorce, no more disease, no adultery, no abandonment, no loneliness. Mm-hmm. Like there's going to be a day where everything is good, and that's the promise of heaven. Everything we hate here will not exist.
Yeah.
And then we have the promise of hell. The promise of hell is there's absolutely zero evidence of the presence of God. There's no hope.
Right.
There is no love. There is no joy. There is no peace. There is no truth. Mm-hmm. There is no life. There is no light. Like the descriptions of hell in the Bible are overwhelming. We couldn't handle more description of hell than we have.
Right.
Although we have enough to know what it's like.
Yeah.
And we actually couldn't handle more of a description of heaven than we have.
True.
Because it would be too much to bear. That's why Paul said, I can't tell you anymore.
Yeah.
I was taken up to the third heaven.
That's right.
Because, I mean, in the Bible, you know that, right? Like, we know the first heaven would be like the skies and the clouds. The second heaven would be space. And when they say the third heaven, that's like heaven.
Yeah.
That's like, what's your address? Heaven. So the heavens, the skies, the heavens, the space, or the heavens, heaven. Yeah. And Paul's like, I went to the third heaven, but I can't tell you about it because you wouldn't be able to handle it. It's just too much.
Wow. Goodness.
And so John saw pictures of it, and he's like, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we have descriptions of heaven, descriptions of hell. We have promises of heaven, promises of hell, but we also have promises of here.
Right.
And the promise of here is that you're going to have a little bit of heaven here, thank God.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of love, a little bit of joy, a little bit of peace, and you're going to have a little bit of hell here too. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a little bit of death, a little bit of destruction, a little bit of sickness.
Right.
We have both.
Yep.
And so when we're here, we have promises of here. You're going to have both here. Jesus said, in this world, you're going to have trouble. Mm-hmm. And so in here, we're going to have a little bit of heaven, a little bit of hell. We get mad at God that this isn't all heaven.
Right.
No sickness, no suffering. And so, but Noah wasn't doing that. I don't think he liked being rejected.
Right.
But he just knew, if I'm going to obey God, if I'm going to have faith enough to obey God, it's going to come with some hellish shadow side.
That's right. And I think you pointing that out, like it helps people to put this in perspective. You remember one of those podcasts you referred to, there's life world and death world.
That's right.
And I think that also is a great description of where we're living.
That's right.
There is life world in heaven, and we're in the midst of knowing Jesus doesn't shield us from the fact
that's right.
There's going to be trouble. Like
that's
John
right.
16:33 that you quoted, this is Jesus himself admitting that in this world you will have trouble.
Totally.
He was clear-eyed about what it meant to live in this world.
And he himself went through it.
That's
rejection, loneliness,
That's right.
all of it.
Yep.
Yeah, the godliest will walk with deep grief, and Noah did. Abraham did too. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the main thing for this story I'll point out is just his wife, Sarah. Like, she's super godly. I mean, it says here that Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was unable to bear children. And like her generations are still lasting. That story feels really good when you just read through Hebrews 11. You're like, oh man, she had enough faith.
Right.
But bro, I mean, I just think this woman, God promised her, and Abraham told her, hey, we're gonna have a child. God promised me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave my home, my inheritance, my wealth, my family. I'm gonna go to a new place, and there God's gonna give us children. And for 40 years, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so this woman's sitting here questioning her husband.
Goodness.
You told me God's going to give me a child. Like, we moved here because you said God was going to give us a child.
Yeah.
We left our country.
Yeah.
And went to another country and left all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you said God's going to give me a child. He's going to make us into a great nation. You pointed up at the stars at me and you told me God said he's going to do this. He hadn't done it.
Yeah.
She's getting older. Her body's changing. All of her friends are having kids and grandkids. She can't go a day without hearing a baby's voice crying.
Right.
And so we read Hebrews 11. We're like, oh, God enabled her to have a child. What? After decades, she got so broken that she gave Abraham permission to go sleep with another woman who was her friend, who she knew. Mm-hmm. They weren't. She wasn't going to say, hey, go sleep with a woman I hate. No, go with this girl, who was probably beautiful, because who doesn't want to have a pretty baby? Mm-hmm. And Sarah was beautiful.
Right.
So nobody said, go sleep with the ugly, toothless woman.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't want a baby like that.
Right.
Hey, so go sleep with this beautiful woman who we like, who we're close to. Go sleep with her, and then I'll adopt the baby. Of course, that's not going to work out well.
Right.
We don't need to read that on the other side of it and go, I wonder how this is going to work out.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't go well. Like, this woman was so deeply grieved for so long. So I just think it's unfair to just do a quick reading of Hebrews 11 without going, oh, stop.
Right.
Oh, my gosh. This suffering was deep, and it lasted a long time.
And I think it was here that you referenced that proverb that hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Yeah, it is.
Like, you have to think about, like, she got, that grief was so acute that instead of dealing with it, it drove her to make these decisions that we all still feel the shockwaves of
That's
today.
right. Yeah,
you know?
Ishmael, the Ishmaelites,
right.
Division between the Jews.
Right. At some point, I think
non-Jews.
Grief has a voice.
That's right.
And it has a will, and you got to deal with that grief, or it will take you in a place you don't want to go. You know, I mean, I think that, I think you flipping the text and having us look at what it must have been like for her to see all of her friends get pregnant. Everyone else has got a family, and it feels like everything's passing you by.
That's right.
You know, and like that level of grief will cause you to do a lot of things you wouldn't ordinarily do.
If you're not looking at your grief through the lens of the gospel.
Yeah, that's right.
She wasn't.
Right.
And, and Abraham disobeyed. I mean, out of desperation to make his wife happy. I don't know how long she begged him for that.
Yeah.
Maybe once he was like, okay. Or maybe for a long time he finally broke down. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he hated seeing his wife hurt. And then, I mean, these verses here, all these people were still living by faith. When they died, they did not receive the things promised. They saw them from a distance. They were foreigners and strangers on earth.
Goodness.
And, what I pulled out of those verses was they never really got out of this place what they thought they were going to get out of this place.
Right.
They never really got out of planet Earth what they thought they were going to get out of planet Earth. I mean, they left here not seeing all of it. Yeah. And then it says they were strangers and aliens, like they never quite fit in here.
Never fit in, yeah.
And I thought, for us, it's good to know these people who did incredible things, they still never got out of planet Earth what they really thought they were going to get out of it. And they never really fully fit in here.
Yeah.
And I think we all feel this.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like, this doesn't feel quite like I fit in here.
Yeah.
Not exactly. And I'm not really getting out of life what I sort of thought or hoped I would.
Yeah.
These people went through that.
That's right. And I think that's, the author to put this in is like that they all lived with the grief of unfulfilled expectations.
Yeah.
Like that just, this is not going to happen in my lifetime.
That's right.
That's
hard.
That's hard. And like, I appreciate the honesty of Scripture, that it doesn't go, hey, all these people, they believed God and got exactly what they wanted.
That's right.
Instead, it says they never fit in. They were aliens and strangers, and they lived towards some promise that they never saw come to pass.
Wow.
I mean, I think this is a good word for a lot of people to know it. You may not see everything that you want to see in your lifetime.
Yeah, you're not.
You're
not gonna. It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. Right.
It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah. And don't you think in some way to acknowledge that helps to somehow curb the amount of grief that people feel?
Totally. I don't know how accepting these people were of it, but what I do know is their faith stayed strong and grew.
Yeah.
While this was their reality. We do know it was their reality too.
It's good.
And if we start to think, oh, if I have enough faith, I'm going to get everything out of this life that I wanted, that's going to break down real fast.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me so angry at this prosperity gospel being written. And I don't want people to put that in too much of a container.
Right.
But like just the teaching of the word, manipulation of truth that serves ourself here without acknowledging these things. Yeah. Like I know people who think if I have enough faith, my life is going to be incredibly great. But these people had more faith than any of us have.
Yeah.
And their life was super hard.
Yeah, super.
That's why I'm trying to point out the super hard part of this stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll get to Rahab real quick.
Yeah.
Verse 31, by faith Rahab the prostitute, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. I'm like, this woman, I mean, she's done so much good.
Yeah.
Like right. All the good that she did affected a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
And still, how she identified? The prostitute Rahab.
Right.
And one of the hard things, and she had a lot of faith. I mean, she had so much faith, she risked her life.
Yeah.
And the life of even her city.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had already been rejected by people so much. She risked a lot more rejection. I just think, man, you know, it's really hard for people in this world. I know some people who are like, my past was not great, but I've been walking with God for a while. Yeah. But then there are people who won't let go of your past, who hold it against you.
That's right.
And I know people, and you know people who, like, man, they just can't seem to get past that. Here's what we do know. In the eyes of the Lord, she was no longer Rahab the prostitute.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, God had given her a new identity. He had used her for his purposes. But the eyes of the world doesn't have the ability to forgive as fully or completely and forget as the Lord does.
That's right. I mean, like I would call this the grief of regret.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to imagine her looking back and going, I don't know how I ever got down this path. I wish I hadn't done it. I wish I could take it back.
Yeah.
And even though she did great heroic things for Israel, you're right. It loomed right behind her. Her past was like just right there. And people have to grieve this stuff through. I mean, you have to work this out.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
What do you say to someone? Like, what are some practical things that someone can do? Like, this is the question I got yesterday. We're at the memorial service I spoke at. These two guys said to me, what are we supposed to do with this grief?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, I think every one of these situations, you look at, like, how does Rahab look at being still called Rahab the prostitute through the gospel?
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at God, if Rahab looked at God through that struggle, hey, I can't get away from being Rahab the prostitute, she would think, God, you're not good. You don't forgive me. You don't love me. You don't move on.
Yeah.
But if she looked at being called Rahab the prostitute through the eyes of the gospel, she would be like, yeah, I was once broken.
Yep.
I was sinful, but Jesus stepped in and saved me and gave me a new life. So now I'm looking at this problem through the gospel.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at God through this problem. I mean, it is a real problem that she's still called the prostitute Rahab.
Yeah.
And it is still a problem that, you know, Noah had to deal with this, and I mean, Abel was killed for it.
Yeah.
How do we look at every situation through the eyes of the gospel? And so for me, if I'm in a memorial service and somebody says, what am I supposed to do with this? This finality of death that, you know, we won't mention specifics here, but I know, of course, really well the situation you're talking about. Like, what am I supposed to do with this finality of death? I'm like, well, what would the gospel lead you to do now? It would lead you to acknowledge that death is real. It's coming for all of us. We have zero control over it. God determines those times and places. We don't know how long we're going to live.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus tried to tell us your life is a mist. It's a vapor. You're going to be here for a moment and vanish. Proverbs, the book of wisdom, can't get away with telling us how brief and short and fragile and vulnerable our life is.
That's right.
So if somebody's asking me when they're at a funeral, what do I do with this? I say, you know, man, make sure your relationship with God is is righteous, man.
Yeah.
You know, get saved. And in the words of one of my good friends who spoke at his own son's funeral a couple of weeks ago, he's like, get saved and get going.
Yeah.
Like we don't have much time here.
Yeah.
We need to spend our time for the Lord.
Yeah.
So get saved and get going. So we look at this situation through the light of the gospel. Hey, my brother died, whoever died at the memorial yesterday, because this is a broken world.
It is broken.
Horrible things happen here. This isn't the heaven that God promised for us, and it's not the pre-sin Eden that once did exist here. This is a broken world, and these things are going to absolutely happen. And now, how do we put the gospel into this moment? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a good word for a lot of people. And then you get to verses 32 to 39, which I'm not a believer in Christian T-shirts, but I think this verse would go on the back of a Christian T-shirt.
Well,
I mean,
all of those,
like that whole rant, conquer kingdoms and justice and lions and flames and swords. Like, and then you talked about the grief behind each one of those.
Man,
you just pointed out the level of grief that all of these great heroic acts come with.
That's right. I mean, dude, people were sawed in two.
Right. Think about what this is not metaphorically.
Exactly. Yeah, there's not like, hey, let's shock these people. The writer's like, oh.
Yeah.
No. People were sawed in two.
Yeah. Not unfriended.
That's right. Yeah.
Way worse than that.
Way worse than that. Thank you for unfriending me, by the way, if we're no longer friends.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they were sawed into. They lived in holes in the ground. I mean, these verses say these people lived in holes in the ground. Like, it says they lived in caves and holes in the ground. People who couldn't find a cave to live in lived in holes in the ground. Like, hey, kids, it's time for bed. Come get in the hole. Like, I'm gonna dig a hole in the ground so that you don't get eaten by an animal out here,
right?
Or so that the wind that's going to whip through this desert tonight doesn't cut us with the grains of sand going 60 miles an hour. Come get in the hole.
Goodness.
They're living in holes in the ground, and they're in the hall of faith. And so for any preacher out there who's preaching, hey, if you just have enough faith, bad stuff's not going to happen to you. I'm like, hey, dude, stop your preaching, bro.
Right.
Please quit. Get another job. Or if you buy their crappy stuff, or go to their crappy church, quit doing that. Don't go to a place where people are going to tell you, if you have enough faith, everything's going to be healthy, wealthy, happy.
Yeah.
I'm like, these people they were in the hall of faith, and they're living in a hole in the ground and getting sawed in two. And those sermons, and I'm holding back like literal bad words,
right.
Those sermons are driving people away from the Lord, and you should not buy their stuff, man. You shouldn't listen to their stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, having a lot of faith does not mean that you're not going to get sawed in two. Having a lot of faith doesn't mean that you're not going to be wearing goat skins.
Right.
Not everybody's going to get sawed in two. Most people aren't. Most people aren't going to live in a hole in the ground. Most people aren't going to be destitute. But this is here to tell us faith isn't the reason why you won't go through struggles.
That's right. And I mean, I think this is a good wake-up call, that most of these people all encountered this persecution because of their faith.
That's right.
Because they were living faithfully.
That's right.
These things came. They were stoned and sawed in two, and jeers and flogging, and killed by the sword.
Yeah.
I mean, this is because they were living faithfully.
That's right.
I mean, this is the exact opposite message of the prosperity message. Like this says, if I pursue God with all my heart, there's going to be some consequences from it.
That's right.
And there will be grief. There will be grief because of it.
That's right. And we go through grief with the lens of the gospel. Yeah. I think the other side of the coin that people abuse or overshoot or misuse is to say, hey, if you are following the Lord, you're going to get sawed in two. Mm-hmm. Or if you are following the Lord, you're going to be poor.
Yeah.
Or if you are following the Lord, you're going to live in a hole in the ground. Like there are people who take it all the way there. But no, I mean, Jesus said, we're going to ask him to give us our daily bread. And many of us, he's given that to and more. We're going to ask him for his kingdom to come here and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah.
But we got to bring this to the center and just go, these people in the hall of faith, Abraham wasn't poor. He didn't live in a hole in the ground. He wasn't destitute, but he had his own grief. Noah wasn't poor. We don't think so.
Right.
He had enough to build a cruise ship of gopher wood.
That's right.
But he went through his own grief. Sarah was not poor. She's a beautiful woman married to a very wealthy man, but she went through her own grief. All these people, you know, they were fine in the eyes of the world, it seemed, but they were going through some real grief. Yeah. And then there were also people on the other side of the spectrum who weren't fine in the eyes. They were homeless, destitute. And so I think it's really unfair to say, if I follow Jesus, I'll be poor or destitute or persecuted with a sword. But it's also really bad to say, if I follow Jesus, I'm not going to have any problems.
Right.
This chapter proves otherwise.
It does, and it means someone should write a book called "Live Your Hardest Life Now."
Well, somebody's going to take
the real truth behind Christianity. Yeah. That should be the subtitle.
Well, just reference our podcast.
That's right. Just send some royalties our way.
Yeah, that'll happen.
What else resonated with you as we move through this sermon?
I just think verse 13 through 16, all these people were still living by faith when they died, admitting they were foreigners and strangers on earth, looking for a country of their own, had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better one. This is on your last page of notes. Okay. Like all these people, they were still longing for another home. And I think that because we have the whole gospel, we know the end of the gospel, which is man, heaven, everything's going to be fully reconciled and made right under Jesus. We're longing for that. Whether we're admitting it every day or not, whether we're acknowledging it, we are longing for that. Meaning, we are going to be continually living with a longing. We're just going to be living with a longing. Yeah. As long as we're alive.
Yeah. That's right.
And we're living with a longing as long as we're alive.
Yeah.
And we need to acknowledge that. I mean, C.S. Lewis touched on that a little bit. He's like, if I find in myself desires which cannot be satisfied here, it must let me know that I'm not made for here. Like I desire something that's far beyond here.
Yeah.
And so we should just acknowledge sometimes, hey, what I'm feeling in here is a longing that can't be satisfied with more stuff. It can't be satisfied with more possessions or more pleasure, more popularity. That's not going to satisfy us. I mean, some of the wealthiest people in the world have jumped out of the skyscrapers that they themselves built.
Yeah.
That's not going to satisfy you. There is a longing in us for another home. Yeah. We're going to live with a longing here. I mean, I know we talk about living with a limp. Like, we see Jacob wrestle with God and he walked away with a limp for the rest of his life. We're going to live with a limp, likely, going through our grief. It's going to affect us. It's a thorn in our side.
Yeah.
We're going to live with a limp, and we're going to live with a longing.
Yeah.
And we should acknowledge that.
That's right. And what does, like, living with a limp, living with a longing, then, you walked us through the gospel icons, but really, what does the gospel create in the midst of the limp and the longing?
The gospel creates a satisfaction that I don't have to reconcile all of that here in this world.
Wow.
And it's not going to be satisfied here. The gospel gives me hope because if I don't look at life through the gospel, I have no hope for what's next. So my hope is going to be in more possessions or more pleasure or more popularity because we think that gives us a little more power. And so if we don't look at this through the gospel, I mean, this world is our ultimate. But if we look at this world through the gospel, we're like, oh, I can have more. I can have peace or I can have contentment because I know this world's not my home. So, we're going to keep living and keep working. That's why Paul told people, hey, this shouldn't cause you to stop going to work.
Right.
Like, get up and go to work. I mean, these people, they believed it so much. They were like, well, let's just sit around and wait for Jesus. And Paul's like, we don't know how long that'll be. Get up and go to work quietly with your hands, provide for your family.
Right.
Like, go do all those things you're supposed to do. But, at the end of the day, we have to, the gospel puts a lens on this and goes, this isn't right. This world isn't our home.
I love that. And I love that once again, in your notes, you called attention to that verse 16, that God is not ashamed to be called their God. that these people became friends of God.
Yeah.
That there was some kind of intimacy
Yeah.
that was built through this.
I think so. Are you choking? Is this your moment, Dave? Or we're going to
I think I'm okay.
podcast we're going to do together?
Thank you, everybody.
That's great. Yeah, I think you need to stop. You good?
No, I'm good.
God has I do believe God is not ashamed to be called our God. I do think there is a special intimacy that we gain with God when we carry faith through struggles.
Wow.
Because a lot of times I think people use faith as a tool or a weapon or a manipulation to try to get God to bless us. But when we go through a struggle and we still trust the Lord like these people did.
Yeah.
Every one of the people that are mentioned here in Hebrews 11, they carried their faith through their deepest struggles. And I believe it created a special intimacy with God.
Yeah, I do too. And I think people need to know that. Like they always say, faith doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like you can't just put it over here away from everything.
Yeah.
There's something about faith in the real world does make you a friend of God.
That's right.
Because Jesus suffered. He walked through all this.
Yeah, and I mean, Paul, right? What did Paul say? He said, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of sharing in his sufferings.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want to know the power of the resurrection part of Jesus.
Right.
I want to know the fellowship of sharing in the sufferings of Jesus.
That's good.
Yeah, and this wraps up here on verse 40. Since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Like, I think the gospel of the end, the icons we put up at the very end was, that's coming.
That's right.
I really do believe that's coming.
That's right.
Like the beginning of it, hey, all this beautiful stuff got cracked and broken. Oh, I know where this came from.
Yeah.
The gospel helps us see that. The gospel helps us also see the end and go, what verse 40 says, God has something better planned for us. I know what's ahead.
So good.
So I live with that hope. I don't need to know when. I don't need to know all the exact sign. I mean, some people, like, they get so wrapped up in the when. When is this going to happen? How's this going to happen? Where's this going to happen? I'm like, dude, you've lost your first love, man.
Yeah.
Like, you lost your first love. You tried to get into clues. I mean, this just isn't some, board game with biblical truths that we're trying to put together.
Right.
No, you lost your first love. Like what they were longing for. I don't see anybody in here going, when are the red heifers crossing the Pacific?
That's right.
Actually the Atlantic, they would have crossed the Atlantic. I think they're going, I just can't wait to see him.
That's right.
And I think for me, every once in a while in my prayers, I can sort of gauge like where I am with this by if sometimes I just sort of automatically say, like without intention, or I just say something like, I miss you. Every once in a while in my prayers, I'll just be praying. I'm like, I miss you.
Wow.
And I mean, that doesn't mean I've seen him with my eyes. I want to see him again. There's just I miss you, Jesus.
There's a longing.
There's just longing. So I think what we see here with these people was, I know there is something far better. Like Paul said, I think Philippians 1:21, I would much rather depart and be with Christ. That's better by far. But for your sakes, I'll remain. Like, I'm going to stay here for God's purposes.
Yeah.
But it would be better for me to join Elijah, to join Enoch, to join these ancients of our faith.
Right.
That would be better.
Yeah.
So I think this is how we live with this,
I do too. I think that ending on a message of hope is where this needs to be. It's really good.
Yeah. I mean, the gospel is full of hope.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we're rescued from hope. We have hope coming. Today I told people, I said, what do you do with this? Some people would be like, I don't really need this. I don't have anything with this. And I said, hey, keep it close.
That's right.
I think you'll need it at some point. You'll need it for yourself, or you'll need it for some other people. I mean, we do need people who are like, because every one of us has somebody in our circle who's going through some kind of suffering and grief. And there have to be some people who can share it. Now, when somebody's in the middle of deep grief, we're not overlaying the gospel into their situation. We're just sitting with them in their grief.
Yeah.
But at some point, their head's going to come up and they're going to go, what do I do?
Yes. Right. And what would you tell someone to say to somebody who's in the midst of grief. Because you're right, in the middle of it, the best we can do is be present. But at some point, like these guys yesterday, when they said, "What am I supposed to do?"
Yeah.
What's your pastoral counsel to helping people get through grief?
I think the thing is when people are in their grief, we just sit with them. We grieve with those who are grieving.
Mm-hmm.
But when people start saying something or asking something, that's when we say.
Okay.
There are times where people, if they're saying something, I know, okay, they're probably ready to talk about it. And oftentimes people in their grief are saying some things that are not where it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to try to, while still sitting with them in their grief, say something that in the grief is helping me. That is true. If somebody asks, that's an even, like somebody in their grief weeks ago was like, how do I see God through this? And I said, I don't see God through this. I see this through the way I see God.
Yeah.
And the way I see the gospel.
Yeah.
And then I was able to say more. So I go slowly, gently,
really good,
cautiously, only by invitation. We never push somebody past their point of receptivity, especially in their grief. And so, I think that's it. But then we're looking for the truth of the gospel, which is the gospel is these icons, this whole story of the beauty and the brokenness and the incarnation and the resurrection and the return.
Yeah.
It's all these
That's
8 icons. It tells a story for us. And so we drop some of that in wherever it's appropriate with a question. So I tell people, I think there's 3 ways to handle this. One, I'm going to put it away. I don't think I need it, but you're going to need it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to help somebody else with it. And then I think some people need to go back to a point on their timeline in their past.
Good.
Where something happened, but you weren't equipped yet with sound doctrine, a proper perspective of the gospel. You weren't equipped in that moment. And so something shut down in your relationship with the Lord. I think we're going to go the way of Abel. Like, hey, I'm going to give God more of all of me because I love him so much. My heart's going in his direction. I'm going to give him the first and best of every part of my life.
Right.
I think we're going in that direction, or we're going in the direction of Cain, which is, hey, my life is mine. I don't really need you in it, God. And so I think there are people who had even subtle shutdowns in their suffering. They had a subtle shutdown in their suffering in their heart to God.
Yeah.
And they need to go back in that honestly, and maybe only they know it. They need to go back in that and just go, I need to revisit this. I need to apply the whole gospel to that moment.
Yeah.
I need to get healed there. I need to acknowledge that before God, that I've been angry at you. I blamed you. I stopped pursuing you, whatever.
Yeah. And it's never too late to get through the grief. Like, that's what I hear you saying. Like, some people need to go back to their past where they misread the grief.
That's
and
right.
Blame God and saw him as an enemy, and to go back and make peace with God. And really, like, one of the things you said near the end today was you talked about, verbalize it. Like when you said, to tell God that you're willing to obey him. Like
That's right.
Was your in the reflection time you talked about actually speak to him about this grief.
That's right. Well, like I'd like to tell people, we have 6 or 7 different forms of, I shouldn't have said that because, kids would have been like 6, 7. So we have 6 or 7 different forms of prayer every week in our gathering.
Yeah.
One of those is a meditation,
silence
on prayer. One of those is a preparation prayer. And one of those is a response prayer, like a reflection and response. And in that time, I'm telling people, hey, take a moment and say, God, what are you telling me?
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to say, okay, yes, I'll do it. Or just tell God, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think some people today would have said, I think God is telling me that I shut down part of my relationship with him in that suffering, and I need to go back.
Yeah.
And then just tell God if you're going to do it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you wrap this up, Dave? What's something you'd like to say as we close this?
Well, I would say that, when you walk the church through the icons, that one of the things you pointed out was that there was grief in every one of those steps. Apart from creation, the brokenness of sin, our attempts to get back, there's a level of grief in every one of those icons. But then also maybe remember that Isaiah says that he was a man acquainted with grief.
That's right.
That Jesus went through it, and he knows whatever someone's grief may be. Like, we have a Savior who identifies with wherever that grief is in their life.
Yeah. No, that's good. We actually sang this song today, Son of Suffering. It's just about how Jesus, he was a man of sorrows, acquainted with our grief.
Yeah.
At the end of our gathering, somebody who's new here today, they came and we talked, in the foyer. And she said, one of the things today that just struck me was it felt like, worship was just so pure. And I'm like, yeah, we're not trying to entertain anybody. We're trying to sing some songs that are real about who God is and give you an opportunity if you want it to step into it, which so many people do.
Yeah.
I think, I would just say, I think that we better get good at learning how to apply the gospel to suffering and grief.
Yeah.
Because it's just part of this planet. We are going to have a lot of beauty in this world.
Yeah. And
we should give God glory for it. And we're going to have a lot of grief, and we should be prepared for it. So I like to tell my kids, especially my daughters, if they're going out, I'm like, I don't want you to be afraid, but I want you to be alert, and I want you to be aware.
That's right.
And Scripture never tells us to be afraid. 1 Peter 5:8, be alert.
Yeah.
Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour, but resist him, yada, yada, or on and on. And so I think, I don't think we need to be afraid of suffering. I think we need to be aware that suffering is going to happen in this world.
Right.
And we need to be prepared. So thanks for the conversation.
So good. I know it'll be helpful for a lot of people.
Well, I believe it will be. And already today, the comments I've seen and heard and been told to me. But yeah, man, it's the truth. It's the word, and it's been good for me.
Really
hey,
good.
Thanks for watching this. We appreciate you doing that. Here's how you can help. Like it, subscribe to it, share it. If it helps you, it could likely help other people. And if it doesn't help you, find something better to do with your time than this last hour, man, if it's not helping you. But if you're watching that, we're hoping that it is. We're glad to spend the time with you. Have a great week. You are loved. See you soon. Thanks for spending time with us today on the Rethink and Return podcast. Here's all we ask from you. Will you subscribe to this, share this, let other people know about it? That'll help us get the message out. Share this content with other people if it's helpful to you. We're grateful for you. See you soon.